So, you know,
this
that's
is
good.
actually normal.
That's actually normal.
Okay, yeah, this works. We'll just continue. Let's just move on. Even though this is also a way of naturally talking to a person. I talk this way.
I talk this way.
You talk this way.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we need some media training into this world I completely don't understand. Clearly, anyone who's watching this, I have no idea what I'm doing.
You're doing this part right, though. I feel like they do a lot with their hands.
Yeah, I illustrate. That's my Middle Eastern blood in me. So, what did we want to talk about today? I forgot. What was it?
We wanted to talk about practical spirituality as it comes to substances like psychedelics, things along those lines.
Aha! Right. Today, what I wanted to talk about with Michael, because we have slight kind of different pathways the way we see it, because regarding the relationship between a spiritual path and what's connected to how would you call it? Substances like we're talking ayahuasca, weed, psychedelics, and you come from the therapeutic and in the medical world. So in your world there's also Prozac and anti-anxiety pills and all these things.
Ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, one of the things that I do. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right. So Michael, you obviously a little more ensconced in it. Now for me, I come from little background. For me, all my spiritual practices came from very, very, very old school teaching, and usually by monks, especially in the yoga tradition. And even though my martial arts and Qigong teacher are not as strict, but for us it's sobriety, full on sobriety is the best path, because everything regarding spirituality, it's about opening your awareness, and when you abuse drugs or substances, it kind of reduces the awareness. Now, I think I'm a little like this sometimes about it.
Right.
Yeah, I think you have a more well-rounded perspective on this.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, I think it comes back down to, again, you use that word abuse substances.
Yes.
Right. And so I think that there's a very fine difference between how you kind of frame these sorts of things, right? Are you using these substances as a way to escape and abuse them, right? Or are you using them as a tool, right, for various aspects, right? So, I mean, science coming out now about how things like, ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, psilocybin, based therapy, things like that, are very good at things like healing different traumas, right? And I'll get into that a little bit more, but I think it's first important to differentiate, what is the aspect of abusing versus the aspect of using.
Okay, so here's my experience and why my mind goes there sometimes, that I feel it's mostly abuse. Because in our modern life, the tendency to abuse anything is more common. We eat too much.
Right.
We work too much. We sleep too much. We do everything too much. Watch too much TV. If you smoke weed, you smoke too much weed. If you smoke cigarettes, you smoke too much cigarettes. If we drink too much. We eat too much. Everything is to the extremes. We kind of swing. And from my experience in the world of spirituality, being in ashrams, being in drum circles, just the other day, I've been into this kind of ecstatic dancing type.
That's fun.
Yeah, and I can tell when I meet a lot of people like that who are clearly smoking tons of weed, tons of like anything that, God forbid, makes them feel uncomfortable in their skin, which is in essence what anxiety is. It's kind of the awareness of our own mortality. So when you feel uncomfortable, we should feel good. That's kind of the attitude we have in the West. Sometimes we should feel good all the time. And everything that kind of takes us out of it, you go into you try to manipulate your own mind to go there.
So I think you're talking a lot about what we call self-medication, right? So
and there's so many self-medications.
Yeah, there's a lot of self-medication, and
like
that's
no
usually,
guidance whatsoever.
Right, exactly. And that's usually indicative of having poor coping skills, right? So if you haven't been trained in things that can regulate your body, regulate your mind, again, through some of the practices we do, Qigong, yoga, things along those lines, right? You go with what's kind of going back to our conversation, numbing versus relaxing, right? You go in towards things that are numbing, things that can kind of erase the pain, give you the escape, like things along those lines. And it's ultimately just, along with what you're saying, medicating yourself, right, to avoid, what the sensations and the uncomfortability can be, right?
Right. So remember when we went to the ashram in the Bahamas? Remember when we sat there with Swami Shalvananda, who is really this great practitioner, been doing yoga his entire life. He came from the Himalayas specifically for the ashram, really well renowned. And remember, I asked him the question, like, what is the difference between your practice and my practice? Like, you obviously are a great yogi. You and the Swamis have been practicing for so long, doing the asanas, the meditation, the pranayama, and consistently for 30, 40, 50 years. And I've been doing yoga for a very short period of time. How would you say your practice would be different than mine? And you remember what he said?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah. He said subtleties. He just said subtlety. It's the difference in kind of like you experience the same thing. You experience anger and anxiety and fear and, all the normal human things, but you are bringing yourself back to the balance in a very subtle way. So as a spiritual practitioner, as you progress and become, and we're talking progression, it's not progression, it's progression. It's a balanced state. Right. Progression is not this. Progression is this. So to me, what I feel that there is sometimes this glorification of the substances and I don't think there's any part of you to say like, oh, just do it. Like you're from a perspective of like, there's a specific guidance, there's specific tools. It needs to help you to, if you're in a state where, guess what, you're not sitting down to smoke, you're not sitting down to do meditation, not going out into nature, you're in this already in a cloister of numbness and suffering. Like sometimes you have been like brought up like that. You were born into this world, into that world. It's surrounding you every corner of your life. Trauma, syndrome. Like you're already ensconced so deep. Yeah. So guess what? You're not going to an ashram in this situation. So maybe this is the path out of it. My thought goes to, okay, maybe it's not sometimes it's not the path out, but it actually gets you deeper and you become too reliant. Now, you use that crutch to teach you how to walk, but then you don't do the physical therapy, you don't do the physiotherapy, and now you're going to use this crutch as a new way of walking. Yeah. Oh, no, and I agree with that completely. Again, I mean, we're on the same page with that, when it comes to coming from maybe a potentially like a world of traumas or, just a cloister of, just uncomfortability and things along those lines. That's the aspect of, well, let me use these substances to escape. Let me use these substances as an excuse to numb, things like that. I think where the crossover comes into play is, again, if you're going into it as an actual tool, an actual learning space, an actual like healing space. Because here's something that I think that you would agree with as well, right? That if, let's say I go to like an ayahuasca ceremony. Right. And I have this, very profound experience. And then I come back. And I'm just exactly where I was before I started going to an ayahuasca ceremony, right? What does that actually do? Well, unfortunately, it doesn't really do anything. Maybe you have some ideas, that's cool, right? But I think the big piece that people miss is, what are you doing with that information, right? So for example, at one of the practices, Integrative Counsel, that I'm contracted with, I do a lot of ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, right? But what sets us apart is that we don't lean... We do the dosing, we do the facilitation, we do things like that, but our focus isn't so much on your experience as much as it is the integration, right? So what do you do with the information that you gathered? So we don't do dosing. We do like a dosing session, and then we ensure that we have an integration session
in between your dosing sessions. So we've got like your treatment plan. Let's say you're coming in with a whole bunch of traumas, a whole bunch of anxieties, and I've seen these profound transformations, even just one session dosings, which is absolutely incredible. But it's like, cool, okay, we facilitate, you go on this experience, you come back with some knowledge, right? And the science behind it is, not to get too technical, but specifically with like ketamine. So if you go into a trauma response, learning tendrils in your brain, they retreat, you go into that, fight, flight, freeze, whatever. Right. Ketamine, what it does is it keeps those learning tendrils open. So if you're going on this experience and you're coming across, different memories, different traumas, things like that, you're more receptive to understanding because you're no longer retreated. It kind of keeps that open. So what do? Right? You come back, how are you integrating this, right? How are you actually using this to accomplish your goals, right? And I feel like that's the important piece that a lot of people miss, right? So you can use it as an escape, right? But again, if you're coming back, then you have two pathways, right? Now you can go integrate, you can change, you can find your way to other things that can help you, better coping skills, or you can just go, that was cool, had some things to think about, when's my next session? You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's a very kind of different plane.
So what do you do? And there's 2 points you made before I want to go back to, but I'm curious about this one. What do you do if you do have like a patient who just waiting for the next dosage, next meeting? Do you like keep working with them? Do you like try to convince them? Do you take like a different path? Like, what do you do with a patient like that?
Like a patient that just comes in and they're just there for the dosing. They're not actually making any sort of progression.
You're kind of like, or,
well, then we will
doesn't have to be
reassess,
so nefarious. Could be just like coasting along. Like you tell them to do the work. Like, oh, great, I'll do the work. Don't do the work. Come back and just kind of, it's the same thing. It's like going to the same ashram and coming back, like you said, like coming back, or having the same ayahuasca experience coming back and nothing is different. You never changed anything in your behavior. So how do you approach or treat a patient like that?
Yeah, well, I think it starts with having a conversation about recalibrating. What are you actually trying to get out of this experience, right? Are you here just to do the experience? Are you here to actually make positive changes? And if it comes into a state where it's just like they're not doing the work, then we would probably talk about other forms of therapy, right? There's something obviously missing. That's what I usually ask people if they're not doing their homework, right? Well, then what are you running into, right? Like why, right? And really trying to get to an understanding of, well, maybe this isn't the right form of therapy for you.
That's really the deep question. It's not about, oh, you're not doing it. What's wrong with this patient? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, if you are resistance. They are basically resisting going into this path.
Right.
And something about it is blocking it. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I'm interested a little more, but I
got tons of information on this.
But I want to do this to the conversation.
Yes.
I want to bring it back.
Go ahead.
So there's 2 points you made regarding the use of that experience. You said like going to the ayahuasca experience and coming back, and that makes me think of 2 things. One is the idea of like going into the ashram, and it could be like an ashram where you have this spiritual experience. You're going out in the world. You went to nature for like 30 minutes or an hour, or a few days, weekend, week, 2 weeks. You had this life-changing experience, and then you come back. One of the problems with the ayahuasca experience and the psychedelics, that you're coming back to the same muscle memory. You're coming back to the same house, the same people around you, the same culture around you. You come back, and it creates this heavy sense of unease, in my opinion. I remember going to the Shivananda ashram, and I was so peaceful. Really, that was the first time I had it was the first time I felt like, oh, this is what relaxation, this is what like contentment feels like, which I haven't felt in 23 years, I think, around that time. And right after I went out to the ashram, I went to a local market in Nassau, in the Bahamas. And I got into...
That's intense.
It was intense. It was intense because I got into like, I remember it very vividly. I went and I saw like a basket or something. It's something that this lady made. And I thought, oh, that looks cool. And I asked her how much it cost, and was like a little expensive for me. I didn't want it. I said like a cool basket, but I don't wanted that much. And she gave me a price, and I said, yeah, I'm not interested. And she goes like, no, you should buy it, blah, blah, blah. And then she would start begging. Like really, it felt like begging. It was like, please, you gotta buy it. And I'm like, and I thought to myself, like I was in the state of the ashram, and I told her, you shouldn't beg no matter what. Like don't ever beg. And she was furious.
Really?
Furious. She started yelling, like, dude, you didn't tell me. You don't tell me that. You don't tell me that. And it freaked me out a little bit. Like she was yelling to other people. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get beat up or something. And I just scurried out of there.
Scurried back to the ashram.
It was scurried back to the ashram. Really, that's how it felt. I'm like, whoa, that was kind of a dose of reality.
Yeah.
There, that people are seeing things very differently than how I see it. And I remember that was like a very awakening. And that's what I'm thinking about now, is like you're getting all these spiritual awakenings, and these psychedelics, they get you there super fast. And your mind is in an enlightenment space, but then you come back home and you have Netflix and social media and Facebook, and you have your 9-to-5 job, and you have all these expectations, and you're in this state of, where am I? It's very confusing. And I saw people who lose their mind, like legit lose their mind after experience like that. Like friends of mine who went to India after the army, went to this cave, took as much as drugs as they could, did this spiritual experience, to never come back. Basically fully lost their mind. And I think it's your spirit is here, but your body has still lacked the discipline and the strength and the ability to handle spirituality.
Right.
Because the idea of spirituality is always, 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 always associated with discipline. Just like kind of what you're mentioning is, if I'm going to give you a path towards a more balanced life, it's not just the material. I can't just give you ketamine and tell you how great you are while everything else is exactly the same. There's a certain level of discipline that is attached to spirituality, or else you will lose your mind. You will be in a state of a complete limbo, like a ghost floating throughout the material realm. And I think, by the way, I think that's where that idea came from, either ghosts or real or not. Different episode, we'll get to that. Like, wait, before that, do you believe in ghosts or not?
Of course I believe in ghosts.
You believe in ghosts? I believe in ghosts.
I used to live in a haunted house.
You experienced ghosts.
Oh, yeah.
I believe in ghosts, but I've never experienced ghosts.
Really?
Yeah.
I should take you to the house I
you
grew up in.
You believe in aliens too.
100%.
Okay, so I believe in aliens. I just never seen it. I don't believe anyone who saw it.
I've seen a UFO before.
Okay, so that's...
I've seen UFOs and aliens, ghosts.
I call bull on that, sir.
Nope.
Bull.
Nope.
But okay,
nope,
to me, until...
Very real experiences.
All right, different episode. We'll get to that. But to me, until I see this ET fella sitting in Congress in front of cameras, and I'm in the Congress itself, looking at it, saying, peace among the world, and like...
Peace among worlds.
And that's the only chance for me to actually believe it. But until then, to me, it's wild. But
sounds very skeptic of you.
Very skeptic. But I believe it's real.
Yes.
I think nobody saw it. But that's my... I honestly forgot where we started.
Well, we started with the aspect of your body lacks discipline. So when you're out, and
discipline discipline and spirituality. You're like a ghost. That's how we got it, because you're like a ghost. And I think that's where the idea came from, is like you are feeling like you're just floating and you can't touch or feel anything because
it's disconnected.
You're there and you're complete detachment, too much air element in you.
Well, I think that comes from two pillars, right? The aspect of not having proper intention in your experience, right? Probably a recklessness in, like dosing or maybe misfacilitated, right? And it could also be, I had one more thing and I lost it. What did I say? Setting the intention, maybe recklessness and, like dosings, things along those lines. And I forgot the other one, so we'll just stick with those two.
Okay, good.
Yeah, definitely. Because again, you have to have, especially if you go on these very profound, and preparation, discipline, right? So for example, you can't just walk into, let's say, a peyote ceremony or a ayahuasca ceremony or a ketamine session, right? You really need to actually prepare your body for it. That's why they say before an ayahuasca ceremony, you need to follow a strict vegan diet for a certain amount of time before you go into it. Or
preach vegan diet. You hear people as
yes.
freaking vegan fanatic.
And very similar with peyote experience, right? You need to eat a lot of alkaline-based foods before you go into there, right? Ketamine is very similar in the sense of it's not necessarily like, following a strict diet or anything, but you need to make sure that you have, so again, kind of tying back to what we were talking about before, like the purpose, the intention, things like that. Is it self-medication, just an aspect of escape? Or is it an aspect of healing? You're looking for something specific, you have the plans to go, so in order to prepare for like a proper dosing session, right, for like, let's say ketamine, you need to make sure that you have your positive coping skills in place, right? You need to make sure that you're set up for success, be it proper breathing works, meditations, positive circles of people that you can surround yourself with, right? Because just because that experience is over doesn't mean you're done integrating and things along those lines. I think a lot of people might actually think, have the misconception that, oh, okay, the high has worn off now. It's like, I'm fine, whatever. The reality is these things, you're still processing over the course of like days. I think with ketamine, they say like it's 5 days, right? So for those 5 days, it's very imperative that the
channels are open, right?
The channels are open, right? So it's very imperative that you go hang out in the park, right? Do some meditation, do some journaling, following up with positive people in your circle, right? And things. It's a very sacred, very intentional thing, right? So I think that you're right. I think if you go into these things just like, well, I'm just going to go get high for a little bit and I'm going to take a whole bunch and it's not facilitated properly and, I'm just kind of jumping right back into the real world. Yeah, there's definitely a risk of becoming super disconnected, right? So I think it all just comes back down to intentionality and integration.
Because that's another thing, right? Because for those people back in the day who did Temazcal and peyote, that was their life. They were spending 99% of the time in nature, outside. If they're not sleeping inside a tent, they're outside. They are living in and with the land. They're outside, and they're not sitting down thinking about their own anxiety all the time. They're like kind of focused, as well as living in nature, and doing Temazcal and peyote. Temazcal, for those who don't know, it's the sweat lodge.
Oh, yeah,
I said Temazcal a few times. So I sweat lodge. So, and when you did that, you had an elder of the tribe who would guide you through it. So you had guidance that came from a matriarch and a patriarch or whatever, someone that you respect.
Right.
That was a leader, as well as being outside in nature all the time. You were not distracted. You were not on your phone all the time.
Right.
And then you do the spiritual practices as part of a whole system, of ecosystem that supports that. And I feel like in the West, we treat it like it's like spiritual tourism in a way. Like you go out, you get this enlightening experience that is more like, here's a story I can tell my friends back in the office.
Right.
And less of this is a meaningful experience. Let me try to understand how I recreate the own ecosystem in my life for it to work out.
Right.
And how do I reposition things in my life to support something that is more deeper and meaningful? And back to what you said, which I think of it's a bit of a paradox, right? Because you say, okay, you got to do this discipline, and as a therapist, I can help you, I can talk you through it, I can kind of like help you figure out why you don't do the work. But at the same time, the paradox I'm referring to is if you are unwilling or unable to change and create discipline in your life and create a different path towards healing and having a different balanced life, and you abuse and you self-medicate, and then you go to Mr. Michael, why would that same person, after coming back from Michael or coming from any kind of guidance, will act in any different way? Like, what needs to change for this person? Like, who said you can't solve the problem with the brain that created it, right? And my takeaway that's correct, because in order to change the mind, you need to change the body. That's why I'm so heavy into somatic exercise like martial arts, Tai Chi, and Qigong, which have been with me my entire life. And because they've been my entire life, that's how I deal with emotional issues. That's how I deal with disciplinary and ecosystems that go into my body and figure it out. That's how we talked about balance. But if someone doesn't have those tools, and there's a lot of catching up to do, how would you expect them to get out of the pattern through the guidance?
Well, so that's why, let's say we bring it just back down to ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, since that's what I have the most experience in facilitating and things along those lines. We don't just jump right into ketamine. You can't come into my office and be like, hey, Mike, I want to do ketamine, and let's dive in. You know what I mean? It doesn't work that way, right? No. Very heavy vetting process, right? So if you have a history of substance use, right, and addiction and things like that, that's something to consider. But I think what you're bringing up is an additional topic here of, when you're looking at any sort of therapeutic setting, right? It doesn't have to be psychedelic assisted in any sort of way, but you can usually tell as the clinician who's going to be making the lasting changes because of how motivated they are for treatment, right? And so I usually ask that question, why is now different, right? Like if you've got this pattern and you're really trying to break it, why? Why now? Right? To really measure what that motivation of change is, right? So if I can really determine or really get the idea that, okay, no, this person's serious, right? They want to do the work. They understand that there's going to be homework. They understand that it's not going to be easy. They understand that, it's going to take some soul searching, some practice, some this, that, the other thing. I've had other people that come in and expect a single session change. Hey, Mike, I've got anxiety. Tell me what to do, right? I don't have the answer. You have the answer.
Nobody has the answer.
Nobody has the answer.
That's the funny thing, because anxiety is literally just a human experience. That's just another human experience. And the problem is we decided that instead of treating anxiety as a human experience, we treat it as a human condition, like some sort of a disease that needs to be taken care of. But anxiety is just kind of awareness of your own demise and fear of the future, which is normal. That's a survival mechanism in us. We have to learn how to work and channel it rather than trying to eliminate it, which is kind of my first, let's call it criticism, regarding the use of drugs, or especially weed, because everybody smokes weed. I've never smoked in my life. Never been high once, except once by accident.
That's a great story.
And it's a great story.
That's such a good story.
For another time. But I remember going through that experience, and I hated it because it just made me feel like I'm unconscious. And I don't like the idea of being unconscious. As a spiritual practitioner, I want more consciousness, not less of it. To be fair, it was Delta 8, which is the worst. The worst. So, to be fair. But I'm just saying, I remember thinking to myself, even if it was like a microdose of that, I don't want it. I don't want it. I feel like it takes me away from my spiritual practice, and that brings me closer to it.
Yeah, so I agree to an extent. I agree, that we have these experiences and things like that, but you also have to take into consideration that there are people out there that, have different chemical imbalances, different extremes, right? Where some medications and things like that may be appropriate. Let's say, for example, like we talk about how depression is an experience, right? It's not like a, like
anxiety specifically.
Anxiety, okay, call it.
Because you dealt with depression, right?
No, yeah,
you too. You went.
I'm a therapist.
You went with the whole thing.
I see everybody. But let's say, for example, I have somebody with depression,
Right.
Right. So there's varying degrees of that. I could have somebody that comes in that's just like, I'm going through some stuff, I'm really depressed, or I've been experiencing kind of a baseline of depression, right? You know, but they're still able to function in a way, right? And we can lean into a lot of those tools. But let's say you've got somebody that has a chemical imbalance and has like major depression, right? I could talk all day about how, you know, Qigong is really healing, right? Going for a walk is fantastic. Tuning into your body is great.
Right.
But if they don't even have the capacity of getting out of bed because they're that far into it, right? That's where something like medication could potentially help, at least temporarily, bridge the gap. Because even if you go to a psychiatrist, they always make sure that you're seeing a therapist on the side, because the medication isn't necessarily supposed to be a permanent thing, but it'll at least help you bring you to a baseline where you're actually able to practice the things that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's the same. I mean? It's the same thing. Like here's a good metaphor to that. Is, for example, if you broke your leg,
right,
and you now need a crutch to walk around. Like, I wouldn't say, walk it off.
Right. Exactly.
Like, you need to put things together and you have to some external thing. However, I would say, but let's say the reason you broke your leg in the first place is because you don't exercise, you don't move, you kind of like absent-mindedly walk, and that's how you lived your life for the majority of your time. And then because you're like that, you have like this calcium deficiency, you have no balance, you have no ability, you haven't practiced any kind of discipline, and then you break your leg.
Right.
So yeah, the crutch and all these things and medication will help you stand up, but you will still get back to that point again because of the muscle memory. So from a mental state, if you usually, and I'm sure there's chemical, like there's the, let's call it the genetic aspect to it.
Yeah.
As well as I can also live my life in a way that is conducive for depression. For example.
Oh yeah, I agree.
People who smoke weed a lot, and that's from my experience, and I know I'm not a smoker, but everybody I know does. I hang out with the cool kids. Let's say.
You're a bleachers kid.
Yeah.
I don't know the bleachers.
Yeah. But for us, it was like the like a little bomb shelter corner.
Okay, there you go.
So what I notice is the more people use weed, for example, the harder it is for them to bring themselves back into a balanced state. For example, someone I know, I won't mention their name or how they're associated with me, but they lived their entire life without using substances until they were like in their 40s. And suddenly they started because they got a high stress job and they start doing it a lot.
Self-medication.
A lot, right. And it's self-medication, but it's also the culture. It's everywhere. That's just
it's accessible self-medication.
Right. And honestly, I don't think it's that abnormal. It's encouraged. People do it. And he started slow, and then he did it more and more and more. And I could tell that when he was not high on weed, he couldn't bring himself to a state of balance. He was either apathetic or a completely annoyed and irritated and short.
Yeah, right.
So it's kind of like, it's like a pendulum that keeps swinging like this. And I believe it's because kind of the encouragement to run away from our feelings. And that person could have been doing until that point that he started smoking. He could have done like martial arts to deal with anxiety. He could have done with Qigong, could have done Tai Chi, yoga. He could have done
practical spirituality.
Anything before we get to that point. And that's kind of what worries me. And I think I mentioned that to you once when you said, like, I feel like we are living in a very negative society. And I said, you know what, negative doesn't scare me as much as an apathetic society is.
Right.
A cynical society. To me, that's worse. The point when I don't care anymore.
Right.
And that's what worries me the most. So I feel that even though you can use the substances as a guiding tools,
right,
and you can use them to help and to heal if you need to, like that crutch you mentioned,
right,
or I mentioned, but you meant.
Don't put words in my mouth.
Sorry. I feel as a society, if we want to lean into spirituality, we have to kind of push aside the substances. We have to treat them for what they are, as crutches.
Right.
Not as like a way of walking. And I feel like these days, it's more like a way of walking. You should just live your life on weed or on Prozac or on, I don't know, what other, I just know Prozac. Whatever.
Sure. But I feel like that's
Adderall. Oh my God, so many people are on Adderall. And to me, and I can see it. And I understand the logic of we have to, it's to help so you don't get into the swing of things. But I'm saying, how do we avoid getting into the swing of things in the first place?
Right.
Right, because we have traumas, we have genetics, but we also have lifestyle and culture and decisions before we get to that point.
And I think in a perfect world, I mean, you're totally right. I mean, in a perfect world,
balanced
I think everybody
would, somewhat balanced. I'm not even looking for perfection, just somewhat balanced.
Well, I'm just saying that, I think that there's the aspect of needing to meet people where they're at, right? Yes, because absolutely. I think that in a perfect world, sure, we would all be, Qigong practitioners, coming to class and being able to kind of feel that balance. Right, and taking care of the body, taking care of the mind, taking care of the spirit, taking care of all of that, right? But we have to also look at the reality of the culture that we live in, and we need to understand that there's a lot of people that either haven't been educated that these things are accessible, right? We have to be understand that we are surrounded by a bunch of overstimulation that can push you in one way or another. So it is that aspect of kind of meeting people where they're at. I agree with you completely. I think that, if we, we're leaning more into...
Touch my hand there for a second.
I think if we were leaning more into that kind of healthy lifestyle, again, we talk about mind, body, breath, right? The three treasures, right? Really being in alignment, right? Finding that balance. Yeah, you'd be equipped with plenty of tools to be able to help you through, a lot of different things. But, I think that, again, that aspect of meeting people where they're at, right? And seeing what they need for the time being. But I think you put it great. I think we're on the same page with that, right? You're talking about using it as a crutch, right? It's the same thing I'm saying, using it as a tool, right? That intention. How is it helping you walk out of the hospital, right? But then once you don't need that crutch anymore, then what are you doing? Then in theory, right, the way that I like to approach this, or the way that I see it in my practice in the healing aspect, is how did that crutch help you walk, right? And then when can you put down that crutch and start walking, right? By taking this information, taking these things that you've understood, things that you've learned, and actually putting them into practice.
Right. Because that's kind of the yes, it's really about guidance and properly use of the tools in our hands and meeting people where they are. And it's not about this is the way to do it. Right. Sometimes that monk attitude can really limit your option, and sometimes it pushes you more. Like how many stories we heard about people going through a dogmatic religious culture, who because of that dogma, because of that straight and narrow, it kind of slingshot them into the other way. They actually went specifically to the other way because of that. Right. Because you can't use drugs. Blah, blah, blah. For me, when I went to school and we had these PSAs, this is your brain, this is your brain on drugs. We had an Israeli version of that. I was the only one who treated it seriously. I was like, oh my God, that's horrible. We shouldn't do that. But I feel like 90% of my fellow students were like, ooh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, they're like, oh, wow. Okay. I want to try that. Yeah, right.
I want my brain to be like a fried egg. That sounds awesome. And I get the slingshot. Sometimes that pressure will actually bring you to the other side.
Can't tell me what to do.
Now, tinfoil hat time. My tinfoil hat.
I love it. Let's go.
I am just a little worried sometimes because I know people who are addicted to substances, and that can be weed, that can be alcohol, that can be rage. Right? Rage could be an addiction. That's one of the
chemicals. It is, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we get so attracted to watching the news, social media. It's certain things that get us angry because we get addicted to anger. They have rage baiting on social media. It's specifically someone writing something that they know is going to annoy someone, specifically just to get people to write, because that's their outlet. You get addicted to the anger.
Well, it's because a lot of people, especially, like these days, are growing up in a survival mentality, right? And so they're used to their fight or flight or their nervous system reacting to, I need to survive, right? And so when it's almost more uncomfortable for people to be in a state of thrival, as I call it, right? Moving from survival to thrival. Thrival could almost be more.
Is that a real word, thrival?
I don't know, but that's how I frame it.
I like
it's from survival to thrival, right?
Thrival.
Yeah. So, but let's say you're in that
revival.
Yeah, that thrival state. Well, that can almost feel uncomfortable because you're like, wait, things are calm. Is that I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Even though I'm in a state where I'm thriving, I'm still looking over the shoulder, right? And I think you're right.
Well, the more you gain, the more you fear you're gonna lose.
Exactly. Right.
Well, the reason I brought it up in the first place is because I feel when you are addicted to substances, it makes you more susceptible. That's why I said tinfoil hat time. Yep. You are more susceptible to be manipulated. So if you click on and you watch the news and they know it makes you angrier, and the more you're angry, the more you watch, the more ads they can sell.
Right.
Then good, we can pivot things towards making you angrier. So you are becoming more and more manipulated because of the addiction. That's why I feel like it makes you less conscious. That's why drugs and substances of many, many kinds make you more susceptible to being mind controlled. It's not mind controlled. But it's kind of funneling you and being manipulated because you're less conscious, right? It's like, oh, you want drugs? Here, come follow the drugs.
Yeah.
Follow the drugs like a donkey with a carrot.
Right.
When they hold it in front of you, and that's why I think there's some sort of an incompatibility between spirituality and substances. Because spirituality is specifically designed to make you conscious and make you grounded and disciplined. But our culture seems to veer you away from that into kind of lack of discipline, lack of self-reliance, self-accountability.
Right.
No, like it's their fault and his fault and his fault and his fault. Those people are controlling the mind of everyone. Like it's not. It's us. We are allowing ourselves to be controlled. It's our responsibility. So it's a lack of accountability. And all these things are an antithetical to spirituality. Now, to reiterate what you're saying, I'm not opposing anything you're saying.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Because I hear the idea of like using it as medicine and to treatment, and it has guidance. You need to have discipline. Like you can't
motivation.
Be like, you can't be like taking ayahuasca and sit down watching Netflix and assuming that your life will be different right afterwards.
Exactly.
Or going to an ashram for a month, and that's going to be another episode for us. Coming back from the ashram, because me and Michael had that same experience. It kind of, I gave you a little bit of my experience on that. Like you have that big awakening and like, oh my God, spirituality is my thing.
Quick promo. June, we will be going to the Yoga Ranch in the Catskills in New York to do a multi-day workshop. I believe it's the weekend of June 11th.
Yes. June 11th. We're going to be there. We're going to do meditation, Qigong. We're going to teach
therapy
stuff. And it's all about everything we're talking about, how we take spirituality and the practice of Qigong and meditation and yoga, because it's a Qigong yoga practice workshop and course, and bring it into our daily life to the point that it is what's the word I'm looking for? Sustainable, so you can thrive in your own ecosystem that is more beneficial for your own growth and for your people around you too.
Yeah, and that's where I'm really stoked to bring my expertise into it as well, because at the end of each workshop we do like a group processing to really kind of talk about integration.
Hell yeah. All right, beautifully said, Michael. And that being said, anything else we want to add? Like, okay, so practical spirituality. What is our practical tips? Right, this is kind of like why everybody's watching this is because of the tips.
I would say that
yes, you do your thing.
All right, I'll give my tips. Then you can give your tips and close us out. I think we did it the other way last time, so switch up.
Keep it balanced.
Keep it balanced. Take some time with yourself. Take some time with a journal. Take some time with connecting to how you feel, how you think, things like that, and really tap into where are you now, right? Like what are your goals? What is your level of discipline? What are the things that are accessible to you? I think that number one, better coping skills, right? Better coping skills. We talked a lot about, that aspect of escape and self-medication and numbing and things like that, and using these things as an escape other than a tool. And so really think about, well, what are the things that energize you? Is it community? Is it movement? Is it meditation? Is it time outside, right? Is it like, what is it that you can walk away from that makes you feel energized rather than like you just turned everything off and escaped for a little while, right? Now, that being said, if you're running into the fact that, wow, I have a lot of traumas that are aligned with this, right? I have a lot of nervous system activation. I have flashbacks. I have nightmares. I have, these things that it's going to take a little bit more than just centering, right, and calming the nervous system and actually working through specific triggers, right? Then you can take a look at doing a little bit more research into potentially what some of these tools, right, could provide in the proper therapeutic setting.
Right. My tip, and very simple. Try to ask yourself what gives you more awareness and what gives you less. So if you're doing a practice that gives you more awareness of things that are real, right? Like objectively real, like things like understanding your breath, emotions flowing through your body, what gives you balance, what helps you develop a more balanced life that helps you and the people around you. If you are in this state, whatever you're doing, keep cultivating that. If you're finding yourself in a place that gives you more confusion, more kind of like more blocking of your awareness, more swinging from side to side, like it gets you dependent on it, it makes you less conscious. And that's another thing, like sometimes people say like, oh, I want to smoke weed, I want to do these psychedelics because it makes me see reality. And in my head is like, are you seeing reality or are you seeing your own imagination perpetually? Like have you created yourself your own ecosystem through these substances, or are you actually getting kind of like a glimpse of a release of your own ego and seeing that we're all one, or you're getting lost in your own, like you're high on the Kool-Aid, let's call it. So if it gives you more of that tunnel vision where you start you're not understanding other people, you're not understanding your family, you're not understanding yourself, you're not understanding the universe around you, you're not understanding your culture, your community, other cultures, if you're getting less understanding and it puts you more in a loss and a deep state of anger and fear and you're swinging, you need guidance. And whatever you're doing to cultivate that needs to change. And the last step is preemptive. Of course, preemptive is like do qigong, do yoga, do things that bring you into balance before you get to the state that you need now guidance, and there's no shame.
No.
Like I want to be clear, there's no shame in that. In asking for help. I have teachers, gurus, and spiritual teachers, and guidance. I got my family.
My entire career is being a servant to people that are trying to.
Right. And so it's important. So if you got to that point, ask for help. But at the same time, even afterwards and before, you have to keep maintaining that balance, because balancing is a constant game, and the more you swing, the harder it will be to bring yourself back, and the more you maintain it, it's easier to maintain than to redo.
Mm-hmm.
That's really how most things are, really. So that would be my tip, is preemptive balance, practice before. That's the discipline. That's why in yoga and qigong, it's always discipline before spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
So doing that helps a lot. And notice what makes you more aware, more conscious, more understanding, more connected. Cultivate that. And what makes you less aware, start pulling out the fuel out of it and try to starve that flame until it dies out. And that would be my suggestion. That makes sense?
Makes sense.
Do you want to close anything?
Great to see everybody as always. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And
Well, we
blah,
don't
blah,
see
blah,
you,
and things like
but
that.
you see us.
You see us.
So I see this person behind you. I got you. I don't know. I'm terrible at pranks.
No, there's
but
cat here, but
I don't think I did a good prank.
I think final thing. Again, just one more little
Becoming
promo.
a Jewish goodbye.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
Jewish goodbye. We say goodbye like 5 times.
One more thing.
Yeah.
One more thing on top of the one more thing. No, again, weekend of June 11th, ashram in Yoga Ranch, upstate New York. In the Catskills, very beautiful spot. If you want to learn more about the things that we like to ramble on about here, it's a very good opportunity to remove yourself and just enjoy presence. So
remove and place. Remove and
Yes.
place.
I like that.
All right, beautiful. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, Michael. I'm going to awkwardly close this camera like this.